So I wanted to talk about what I think is one of the most useful scales in jazz, but unjustly neglected, which is the harmonic minor scale. And it's kind of funny because Mark Levine, for instance, kind of shunts it away in the later chapters of the jazz theory book and says, you know, well, not many players use this apart from Bud Powell. And people have said things like, well, the harmonic minor wasn't played much by American jazz musicians. It's only, you know, really relevant if you play gypsy jazz. And then I compare what they're saying to my listening experience going through Charlie Parker and Bud Powell and Grant Green and Kenny Burrell, and I don't really get it, to be honest. I think this scale gets used a lot. Perhaps people just analyse things differently, or maybe they're just listening to different players than me. So what's a harmonic minor scale? Well, it's what happens when you take a natural minor scale and raise the seventh up by a half step. And that gives you 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, 7, 1. And why would you want to raise that 7? Well, it's to take a major third in the dominant chord. So for instance, in the key of C, we've got the major third of G7 is a B, and that doesn't belong to the natural minor scale. So if you want to have that decisive resolution as opposed to something a little bit more modal with a B flat, which is common in folk music, then you raise that note, and then that gives you that extra push. The only problem with that is then you run into this melodic feature, which is the augmented second. The gap between the A flat and the B is considered by Western aesthetic standards to be a little bit of a problem, and this is true of 18th century music, and it's also, I think, to some extent true of jazz. So because of that, it becomes necessary to understand how to tame the scale a little bit if you want to get that kind of aesthetic. I'm not saying that this doesn't sound great, because it's really cool, you know. You know, like, it's a cool sound, but it's not something that the beboppers use particularly, or the classical musicians really either, which might be one reason why people perhaps don't talk about it as much as they should, in my opinion. So I think I divide scales into two sort of categories. There's ones that are kind of static, like the Lydian mode, where all the notes just sound good, or various melodic minor modes. And the thing about harmonic minor is it's not like that. It kind of has a tension within it. It wants to go somewhere. And in fact, you can look at it as being sort of two chords together, a chord progression, in fact, a B diminished seventh moving to a C minor, and that gives you all the notes of the harmonic minor. So and already you're creating lines despite arpeggiating those two chords. But it's not like where you can just sit on all the notes and every note sounds good. For instance, I mean, flat 6 sounds highly dissonant over the C minor, for instance. So it's not a scale where you have all the good sounding notes and you can just hang out on them. It's something you have to use in a dynamic way, which to me is beautiful. By the way, Barry Harris students might notice that that's a similar way of thinking about a harmonic minor as you might think about something like the minor sixth diminished scale. Just saying. Okay, so that's one way we can do it. And actually there's a nice melody by Lester Young, Tickle Toe, which does this. I'm going to transpose it to C minor. The original key is down a step. So, and that's all in C harmonic minor apart from that little half step there. It's a cool melody. There's more to it than that, but that's basically how it's constructed. Another way you can kind of iron out that weird sort of jumpy augmented second a little bit is to just run through the scale. So don't change direction on it. Don't do that. And don't start on the note that's next to it. So that's going to emphasize it, obviously, if you stop on it as well, or going the other way. It's going to do the same thing. So if you just pass through the scale, maybe starting on flat 6, descending, that's really no problem. Or the root, fourth, second, it's fine. Third, it's got to be careful about the flat 6 and the 7th. If you ascend, similar thing. That's fine, but this is obviously drawing attention to that interval. If you do really want to go from like flat 6 to 7, for instance, in ascent, then you can transpose that down by an octave, and then you get that, and that sounds much less kind of problematic Middle Eastern pastiche. And of course this is a Bach line, like that, right? So that comes from the two-part inventions originally in D minor. I think in balance in bop, the scales are more usually descending. So if we think of it that way, we can, if we go down from the 7, what we can do is we can transpose that down by an octave, like that. That's pretty cool. And actually it comes up a lot in bop lines. This is a very common strategy for making the harmonic minor less harmonic minory. Another thing you can do is you can alter the harmonic minor back to the natural minor. And so, for instance, if I'm doing a phrase like this, based on a B diminished 7th using notes in the harmonic minor, it just sounds a bit, non-idiomatic. Beboppers don't really play that, so what you can do is you can just alter it back into the natural minor and play sort of a B flat for your direction change. And this is a line you actually have in Don the Lee, for instance. You can mix it up obviously with chromatic notes as well and all the rest of it, but I'll just leave it at that for now. I think that gives us enough of a repertoire of stuff we can do with a harmonic minor. Okay, so the question is, how do we use it harmonically? And I think this is where it really comes into its own, is whether it's minor 2-5-1. So a lot of books seem to say you have to use 3 different scales to play a minor 2-5-1, and like this, for instance. So for a D minor 7 flat 5, you play a D low Korean sharp 2. Over G7, G altered, and over C minor, maybe a C melodic minor. I mean, that all sounds lovely, but it's a certain sound, and it's also like quite a lot of information. And when I was starting off playing, I think I would have appreciated being told, just make up minor key melodies, that would have been easier for like playing Autumn Leaves or something. So I think that can be facilitated with a good understanding of the harmonic minor. So if we're going to use this to play a minor 2-5-1, the harmonic minor works really well, but you just need to be aware of a couple of things. First of all, it's good to start from one of the diminished tones, so not the 1 flat 3 or 5, but actually from the 7, the 2, the 4, or the flat 6. So flat 6 sounds lovely. That sounds good. So that kind of thing. Or we can start it from the 7th. We use our octave displacement thing to get rid of the augmented second. That sounds cool. Or we could use the 4th. Or we could use the 2nd. You can hear that I'm already starting to add in some like little alterations. I swapped between the C harmonic and natural minor in the last example, just to start to bring it to, just to make it a little bit more beboppy, I guess. It's just very simple, but it is a sound that gets used an awful lot. You can also do your arpeggio thing, which sounds nice as well. I think, if you start on one of the triad tones, it can sound nice as well. The important thing is just to know where you're resolving, where you're going to, and usually in this case it'll be one of the C minor triad tones to resolve it. There's a couple of nice features about the harmonic minor, particularly this A flat minor chord, which is actually hiding in the scale. If you look at the A flat triad, it's actually flat 6, flat 3rd and 7th. It's a misspelled A flat minor triad. And that's interesting because we usually associate that sound with like the G7 altered, and actually here it's hiding in the C harmonic minor, which I find quite interesting. And actually you can add in the major 7th as well. Just make it into a minor major 7th or 6th without ever leaving C harmonic minor. And if I add in the the natural minor note, the B flat. We're edging quite close to the alto scale. If I add in the flat 2, the key, we are almost getting into the alto scale. And that's interesting to me, how little difference there is between the harmonic minor, the natural minor, and the alto scale. They're all kind of next to each other. So you can learn how to use those individual tones to get that kind of sound if you want. The flat 2 of the scale, by the way, is a flat 5 and a G7. That's very beboppy to play that, right? So lastly, kind of the most common place I see this cropping up is, you know, as a scale that you play over the 6th chord, a 6, 7, flat 9. So for instance, in Donna Lee, you go from F7 flat 9 to B flat minor 7th. There's this line which starts off as a one. It starts off as an offbeat added note Barry Harris scale if you want, or an A flat bebop major if you prefer that. And then we end up in the harmonic minor, B flat harmonic minor, and then that plays over the that 5-1, that the F7 flat 9 going to B flat minor. And it's really common to find it in that position, so going from like 6 to 2. For instance, if I play like a 1, 6, 2, 5 in C major, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That kind of thing, right? So it sounds very beboppy, you know. It's really, really common in that position. Lastly, I want to talk about the way Barry Harris handled this scale. So Barry Harris would do it in a slightly funny way, which might seem a bit odd until you realise what the advantages are. So in the case of D minor 7 flat 5, we'd now see this as a B flat 9 chord. So we play the B flat dominant scale, or Mixolydian mode if you're not a Barry Harris student. So then we play this, for instance. And then what you can do is you can run that scale down to what you call the 3rd of the dominance, in this case G7, the 3rd of that is B. So we raise the B flat up to a B, and we go, and that gives you the harmonic minor. As well as the natural minor. So the B flat 7 scale is the same as the C natural minor, and you raise the B flat to a B, and you've got the harmonic minor. And that's a really elegant way of doing it, because then I can play all of my dominant language, my dominant bebop language, that kind of thing, or you know, anything like, you know, thirds or anything, and that kind of gets you a little bit out of thinking about the harmonic minor scale so much, but still gives you the advantages of that sound. So that's really useful. We'll hunt down a video by Chris of things I learned from Barry Harris. I'll probably cover that in a little bit more exhaustively. I found that a very useful strategy indeed. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think below. I think the harmonic minor needs more love. Thanks for watching.